today I'm going to be playing with an idea I had on a Livescope transducer mount. Now, I don't like keeping mine on the trolling motor because my trolling motor is going back and forth. I want to be able to keep it forward if I want to, or turn it a different direction if I want to. So I went and picked up a trailer jack, and I'm going to try to turn that into a mount for my Livescope. Now I'll start by saying the plan I have here today is going to take somebody that's a little bit handy. I'm going to have to do some welding, I'm going to have to do some cutting, so you're going to have some tools and be a little bit handy if you're going to make this work. And I'm not even sure it will work, but we're going to try it and see. Okay, hopefully this camera angle's okay. I'm going to open this thing up. I bought this at Harbor Freight, and it was like $28 before tax, so a pretty cheap deal. And I'll show you what exactly I'm going to try. And I do say try because, like I said, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be able to make it work, but I think I can. Okay, so the process is going to be to take this jack apart. Now, what I'm looking to do is use this pin here, and then use this part and this part to mount my transducer to. And this part, I'm going to take a piece of plate and run in here and weld it. And that part will be mounted to my boat. And basically, it'll have a piece of plate right here, and it'll mount to my boat, and this piece will hang off. Now this piece here, right here, is going to be the part that holds my transducer on. And that way, I can put it down this way, and my transducer will be in the water, and then I can turn it this way, put the pin in, and it'll be out of the water, and I'll be able to move to different spots. That's the theory. Now we're kind of going to be doing this together, so I may be cutting and editing some of this, and that way y'all don't have to go through all the painstaking figuring out part. But it shouldn't be too complicated. I know the number one thing we're going to do is take this jack handle off, so I'm going to do that. That'll be my first order of business here. Okay, we're not going to need that. I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. You never know. I do a lot of weird stuff like this, so you never know when something like that's going to come in handy. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get this ring off here. That way we can lift this piece up. They make a pair of pliers for this where you squeeze them and lift that out. And I have some, but who knows where they are right now. I'm going to take these little needle nose and see if I can get them. This is not the right way to do this, so if you have those pliers, use those. And that's the reason. Luckily that didn't hit me in the eye or anything. That's just going to be a washer to keep the grease in, and this could get a little bit messy because this is going to be full of grease if it's any decent kind of jack at all. Down there, there's grease in it. I like to got my finger there, but that thing just lifted right off. That's exactly what I want here. So I don't need this piece of the jack. So that was very easy to get the piece that I do need. My plan here is to cut this pipe this direction on each side, and so it'll just be half a pipe like that. And then strap my transducer mount against this. So we'll see if we can do it. Okay, so in order to cut our tube here, I'm going to use this DeWalt grinder with a cutting wheel on it. Should make it pretty easy. We'll just take it, cut down this direction, cut this off at some point, and cut this off at some point. And then once we do, we're going to have some sharp edges. And I will take a grinding wheel and a sanding wheel on this same tool, and I will grind those down to where they're smooth and they're not sharp. So this is what those pieces look like. This is the grinding wheel. You'll notice it's real thick on the edge. The cutting wheel is real thin. This is a sanding wheel. It's just like sandpaper. So those two things will get it smooth where we can make those edges where they won't cut us. Number one thing here, safety. Ear protection, eye protection, hand protection. You can see there's an indentation right there. I want to cut that out because I want this part to be smooth. And then you have this piece in here on this particular jack. So I'm going to cut a little bit below it, and that way it's out of there. So that's the plan. See in there maybe. Pull that out. Just has this little pin in it that's bent out. If you straighten it up like that, it pulls out pretty easy. Now that'll hold that in place, make that a little easier. That's what I've got so far. Now I need to get rid of this piece here, so I'm just going to cut right behind it. Now that's the piece I need. And I'm going to now take the grinder and clean this up so these edges are really sharp. I'm going to clean those up. That looks pretty good there. Okay, so here's the front of my boat, and right about here is where I'm going to mount that bracket. Now, the trick here is that whenever I raise my mount up, I do not want it to hit the side of my boat. So I have got to get it to where it is at the right angle to miss this, the widest spot of my boat right there. So what I did was I took a line and drew here, and I'll use that as a guide on my bracket when I go to cut it. Okay, so here's my line, and I use this to get the same angle. So I can take this pencil and mark that. Be better to use a chalk pencil here, but I'll be able to see that enough to cut it, I believe. Okay, now I'm going to cut this mounting piece off to length, which was about 10 or 11 inches on my boat. May be different on different boats. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of mounting holes in here. Probably one in this area, and then one back here. Here somewhere. All right, let's clean this up a little bit. We're gonna need to paint it, so we'll clean it up some. So what I've done here is figure out the best place for this to mount on my boat. Now, I put my transducer on here and rotated my bracket to make sure it was going to miss all this right here. So I've got a spot picked out, and now it's just a matter of taking my pilot holes and drilling those in here, and then I'll drill a hole big enough for the screw, and then I'll just mount it right here. Now I'm going to put a piece of rubber underneath this. I've got some clearance, but not a whole lot, and I don't want that getting into the hull of my boat. So I'm going to put a pretty solid piece of rubber behind this as well. Hopefully you got a decent view here. So here's my bracket, and I took this piece of rubber, which was actually a pipe clamp, and I just cut it up, but it's a pretty thick piece of rubber, and I'm gonna put it across here so that I don't damage this part of my hull. Now I've already got the holes drilled in it. You can see how it's drilled into my bracket there, and I've drilled my holes in the hull. So we just wiggle this down in there, and that should protect our hull here when we going to screw these down and make sure they're already in. And then I've got a flat washer to go on the underneath side that helps keep the hull from cracking, and so I'll put one of those on both of these bolts, and I've got my access panel out so that I've got a hole so I can get to it right here. Now I'm going to start it with this. Okay. And I will go ahead and tighten this one up pretty good. Alright, you could hear that got tight. I'm going to use just a regular screwdriver to get it where I want it here. That ought to be good. Now I'll put the other washer and nut on. Alright, that is stable and sturdy right there. I cut a ring out of this pop clamp, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it over this all the way against the back, and that's going to make this piece a little bit tighter. This piece right here will slide on there and be a little bit tighter, that way it won't jiggle and move around too bad. We want it to be tighter, see, that way it doesn't have a lot of play, and I think that'll help some. Okay, so now my Livescope transducer is mounted on this. I've had it mounted on this for a long time, and what this is off a MinnKota Edge trolling motor, and it allows me to have this stationary and then turn my transducer. So if you haven't seen that, I've got that in another video, and I'll link that right here. So the theory here is to take our pop clamps, run them around here, and tighten them down, and that'll keep this sturdy here. Okay, so now you can see I've got this mounted, and I just tightened these clamps up right here, and I did put a little strip of rubber behind this transducer mount. That way it's not as easy for it to slide back and forth. That rubber gets a hold of it. But the theory is you pull that pin rotate this down, put this pin back, and then once you're pinned in here, this thing is stable. So you can see I can turn my transducer wherever I want it. If I want to leave it forward, I can leave it forward. Don't have to worry about it. I can point in any direction, and I don't have to worry about it moving when my trolling motor does. And with this system here, I can raise this thing up and take off really easy. Go to another spot, put it back down, and I'm good to go. If I'm not using it, I can leave it stowed. Now, when I'm trailering my boat and going down the road, I can also take this completely off, and I can put this in my truck, I can put this in my boat, lock it up, that way it's not available for somebody to just steal off the side of my boat. So I think this system's gonna work really good. I'm excited to get it out on the water, and once I do get it out on the water, I'll do a few reviews of it and let you know how it's working. But this is what I was looking to do. I've got it done. We're gonna test it out soon, see how it does.